Evening and welcome to the May 22, 2023 City Council meeting. I am Mayor Ross. Tonight's City Council meeting is being recorded and will be available on city's website. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. City Clerk Dean, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Benson,
Here.
Councilmember Watton,
Here.
Councilmember Holloway,
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew,
Here.
Councilmember Washington,
Here.
Councilmember Christensen, here, Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
and Mayor Ross.
I am here. Thank you, City Clerk Dean. Could you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? We'll have Councilmember Washington. Would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we move to the first item of regular business is to approve the agenda. Can I have council have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Johnson. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Holloway,
I'd like to move to add to the agenda in the appointment section, appointment of Information Technology Director, Motion House, confirmation and oath of office. May I have a second?
Second.
been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and second by Councilor Johnson for the Agenda Bill 23-062 to appoint, that's the wrong one, 75, to appoint the IT director. Any other comments or changes to the agenda? See if there's Councilor Johnson.
Just curious if we need to do the same for interim city attorney or not. This is a question. I don't know if we need to.
I think
affirm or
we're
not.
going to introduce him, but
Okay.
as our,
Well, you
your
don't need
interim.
council.
right,
Okay.
at this point. That's correct. Okay. So we may need to move this item to a little bit later in the agenda. I don't believe that our new IT director has joined us at this point, so. Do you want to move down to finance administration?
Ken, if you prefer, I have no objection.
Okay. Right. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, ayes have it. And the agenda is amended as stated. Okay. Great. So next next item of regular business is the appointment of Economic Development and Planning Commissions. The purpose of this agenda bill is to confirm the appointments of Mr. Chandra to the Economic Development Commission and Michael Crone to the Planning Commission. Shabla Chandra is the president of Space Labs Healthcare and holds both an MBA and master's degree in biomedical engineering. He has more than 2 decades of leadership experience and represents a business within the Snoqualmie business community. Michael Crone is a senior manager at Philips Healthcare and holds a master's degree in electrical engineering. He has resided in Snoqualmie for over a decade and is interested in giving back to the community. Council may have a motion to confirm the recommendation of appointments. Shabla Chandra to position 1 on Economic Development Commission and Michael Crone to position number 7 on the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Just moved by Councilor Christensen, second by Councilor Johnson. Is there any discussion?
For the record, I think the second was Councilmember Watton.
You're closer. You're closer. So Sam.
Well, and there's
traveled.
Washington. I
travel
just
distance.
couldn't get it there. So. All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? So the ayes have it. And the appointments are confirmed. And let's see if any, oh, Mr. Crone is online. If we can we move him to panelists and see in case he wants to say a couple words? Or unmute him? Mr. Crone?
Good evening.
Good evening. Congratulations on being appointed to Planning Commission. Did you want to say a couple words?
Well, first, thank you. And second, I just appreciate everyone's time and I'm really looking forward to getting started.
Excellent. Thank you very much for volunteering and for your future service on Planning Commission. So thank you. Right. Okay, moving on to AB 23-066 National Public Works Week. So we recognize National Public Works Week, which is an opportunity to raise public awareness about the critical role public works plays within our community. We thank all of our Public Works Department staff for their service and dedication. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Snoqualmie. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and our structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in public interest for citizens, civic leaders, and children in Snoqualmie to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in the respective communities. And whereas 2023 marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week. Now, therefore, I, Catherine Ross, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, do hereby designate the week May 21st to 2023 as National Public Works Week. Mr. Shamlis, would you like to say a couple words?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I know I speak for the entire department when I say it's an honor to serve the community. And an example of one of our public works is Riverview Park. We're gonna have a little soft opening at the end of the week, just in time for Memorial Day weekend. And then we'll have a formal opening on June 9th. But something as small as a playground, that's also what we do. So thank you.
Thank you. Second proclamation is National CPR and AED Awareness Week. So we recognize National CPR and AED, which is Automated External Defibrillators Awareness Week, which is designed to spotlight how lives can be saved if more Americans know CPR and how to use an AED. It also places importance on the willingness of bystanders to act in a cardiac arrest emergency. So we thank our entire EMS workforce for their service and expertise in these situations. So whereas more than 1,600 people in the United States suffer from cardiac arrest each day, and whereas over 70% of all cardiac arrests happen outside of a hospital and in homes, and whereas less than 46% of people excuse me, who experience out-of-hospital cardiac arrest receive the immediate help they need before professional responders arrive. And whereas part of the EMS system includes training members of the community to respond to cardiac arrest events and to provide care before EMS providers arrive. And whereas early access to CPR and automated external defibrillators or AEDs has been proven to dramatically improve cardiac arrest survival in the out-of-hospital setting. Now, therefore, I, Catherine Ross, Mayor of the City of Snoqualmie, do here proclaim June 1st through June 7th as National CPR and AED Awareness Week. And we have our Deputy Chief Bailey. Would you like to say a couple words?
Thank you, Mayor Ross and Council, for recognizing the importance of CPR and AEDs in our community. The Snoqualmie Fire Department takes a proactive approach to getting CPR and AEDs out into the community. I just want to highlight a couple of things that we do. We hold community classes monthly throughout the year at the station. In 2022, we're still coming off a little bit from COVID and we didn't have our full class schedule, but we did train 80 adults in CPR and AED. And another partner we have is with the Mount Sinai High School since 2000. We've been teaching 2 classes or 2 instances of classes a year to Mount Sinai High School. These classes are part of their curriculum in the health class and a requirement for graduation. So in 2022, we taught over 400 students over each semester at the high school. The department also participates in a grant through King County to provide public AEDs to the community. Over the years, the grants have supplied AEDs for all the public buildings in the city, as well as we're working on getting them in all the parks also. This project still we're working on. The department also has AEDs that can be loaned out for large events in the community. Besides the one the department manages, AEDs can also be found throughout the community in places like the hotel, the school district, a lot of the major businesses in town, as well as medical offices all have AEDs. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out that we are also part of a cell phone app called Pulse Point. If you've heard about that, you see it a lot on Facebook. People use it to see the calls that the department's going on, but it was designed to notify members of the public who are CPR trained. If there's any cardiac arrest within their vicinity, they get an alert on their phone so that they can go and respond and possibly start CPR before the fire department. Even though, we can get there within 4 or 5 minutes, depending on where it is, we can get people out there. The sooner CPR is started and the sooner an AED is used, better chance of survival. So that's just another thing that we're part of through King County and through our dispatch center with that Pulse Point app and making sure we get the community out there and get CPR started as quick as we can. So thanks again for pointing it out, and just wanted to let you know some of the things that we're doing to make sure our citizens are trained up in CPR and they can help us out when we need them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So council, I would like to introduce our David Linehan, city attorney with Madrona Law, who'll be filling in for us for a little while. I think you went around and met each one of you, so. Then we do have Councilor Mayhew online as well. So,
Right.
great. So at this time, we will provide time for residents to comment on items not on the agenda. First, a few ground rules. Snoqualmie residents who are not present have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. Therefore, comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please wait to be recognized and state your name and the city of residence for the record. Direct your comments to council as a whole and not to individual members. And please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. And the council will quietly and respectfully listen to all of your concerns. So with that, would anyone like to speak to any concern that is not on the agenda tonight? So please raise your hand in City Hall and then also online. Not see anyone in City Hall raise their hands, nor anyone online. Right. So now we move on to the consent agenda. It contains approval of May 8th, 2023 City Council regular meeting minutes. Approval of the claims report dated May 22, 2023. AB 23-064, resolution number 1648, awarding a public works contract to CPM Development Corporation DBA Icon Materials for the 2023 overlay project. AB 23-071, resolution number 1650, authorizing the purchase of server equipment and installation with Ivoxy Consulting. Councilor, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Johnson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. Is there any public comment regarding these items that are on the consent agenda? And if so, please limit your comments to 2 minutes. So I'm looking online. Not seeing anyone raise their hand, nor in City Hall. Councilors, any discussion? Councilor Johnson.
I am very much looking forward to the work on Stone Quarry Road. I happen to know of an organization in that vicinity that is also very excited for that work.
Excellent, thank you. Any other discussion or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? It's unanimous and the consent agenda is approved. Next item is AB 23-068, the 2023 to 2024 biennial budget amendment. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, would you please read the summary?
Motion to authorize the first reading of ordinance 1277, amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget and to set a second reading and adoption 77 for June 12th, 2023, city council meeting agenda. May I have a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilmember Benson. Councilor Watton. Is there any public comment regarding that item? If so, please raise your hand online or in City Hall. I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand. Is there further information regarding this? Or Director of Finance and HR, Jen Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. So this was read into the record for an amendment of the budget. Just wanted to provide you with a brief overview. What this does is amends the adopted budget, the biennial budget. The appropriation request is a little over $3 million. You'll find in the packet of information, Exhibit 2, which provides a table of all of the proposed requests. And so I can go through that. I can answer questions. We also have department heads here to talk about their request for an additional appropriation. But wanted to make sure that you all had any questions answered about what staff is proposing. These amendments include appropriation for an incentive retention pay program for our last employee group, salary commission decision on increase in salaries for elected officials. The opioid settlement, this sets up a fund so that this is separated. These are new dollars coming specifically for opioid use and treatment, and it has a specific use of those funds. Appropriation is requested for a housing study, home elevations fund. So this is an anticipation of dollars that would be coming. We have a railroad crossing improvement project to appropriate dollars for, as well as the winter proclamation, some emergency spending that needed to happen. And then, of course, we have in the stormwater fund, we have a maintenance bond settlement for street tree pruning. We had a fee associated with our trash receptacles, and of course, the server storage replacement project. And just to give you just a quick reminder about the budget amendment is that oftentimes when the council sets a budget, there are unknowns. There are emergency spending that staff wouldn't know, the council certainly wouldn't know. And so budget amendments, while we're in a biennial cycle, we look to the mid-period or end of the first year in a budget to do a major budget amendment, but oftentimes there is a need to approach the council for consideration of a budget amendment. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Councilors, any questions? Let's see online. Okay.
Mayor Ross?
Yes.
If I might, if there are no questions, just a reminder to the council, this is a first reading of the ordinance. It is Exhibit 1. This would be brought back to the council then for a second reading and adoption at the next council meeting.
And sorry, I do.
Councilor Washington.
Thank you. So just, and we spoke about this at the FNA meeting, but just in the late payment for the trash receptacles. So the $25,000, it's coming out of the general fund, so it's divided by two, right? So 12,500 will come out of the general fund and go into parks maintenance. And then it, out of the additional general fund, will go into street maintenance, 12,500, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Both of those functions are in the general fund. So the total 25 is coming out of the general fund, but they are split up based on our bars coding. So two separate divisions, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have a question from, or maybe a statement from Drew Bote, our budget manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to emphasize for everyone that the budget amendment requires a supermajority. So in essence, 5 council members will have to vote in favor of this for the budget amendment to pass at the next reading. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Trying to do some math here. So what is the proportion of the new, let me find the wording here. Yeah, for the new appropriation of 3 million that is in grants, et cetera, versus coming from general fund? Does that question make sense?
It does. I
Okay.
think that was in the agenda bill.
I was just trying to find where.
Yeah,
Cons-
yeah, if you look at the last column, it's offsetting revenue description. You'd have to go through and add all those up. There's not a
Right.
subtotal down there, but where we've got external funding resources, they're in that column, last column.
Okay, I think I see it now. All right, thank you.
And Drew Bote.
I was just going to add to that. Basically, the last or at least the background paragraph as a part of the agenda bill cites how much. In essence, the additional appropriation of $3.07 million is anticipated to be supported by an estimated $2.27 million in grant and other revenue. Furthermore, the budget amendment seeks to establish several new funds that combined will have approximately $1.61 million to appropriate in the future after we kind of do some sufficient program planning and come back to you. So some of the items that don't necessarily have revenue tied to it directly would include things such as the incentive retention pay program, which we did certainly discuss during the budget adoption this previous year, the salary commission decision on salaries and benefits for Snoqualmie elected officials. And I think it's probably roughly the 2022-2023 winter proclamation emergency. So that would be paid out of the utilities capital fund, basically for all the tree damage that we suffered during this past winter season. You'll also see things such as the maintenance bond settlement for street tree pruning and care. That revenue was actually collected in 2022. Phil is really eager to get his hands on those dollars so that he can go out and do the work that he needs to do to accomplish. And then you'll see other things such as the late payment on trash receptacles, as well as the server storage replacement project too. So those are some of the items that don't necessarily have revenue tied to it. Anything that doesn't really have kind of this grant revenue coming in will be primarily paid for out of cash balances. And we think we have sufficient kind of reasoning as a part of our overall budget amendment as to why we need to accomplish quite a few of these things. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bote. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we will. So again, this is our first reading. The second reading of the ordinance is scheduled for June 12th. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any report for Public Safety Committee?
The last public safety meeting, we discussed the parking ordinance. Again, we received additional public comment on the matter from the folks that are living in the homes, as well as an email from someone living at Panorama. The management company for Panorama was supposed to submit a letter, but we're hoping to receive that in advance of the next meeting.
Thank you. Move on to community development. So AB 23-059 Snoqualmie Housing Strategy Plan. Councilor Johnson, would you please read the summary and motion?
Yes, the city has contracted with LDC Incorporated to complete a regional housing needs assessment for the cities of Snoqualmie, Carnation, Duval, and North Bend, as well as a Snoqualmie specific housing strategy plan. Staff from LDC will present draft findings to the city council, which I believe has been done. Move to adopt resolution number 1647 approving the housing strategy plan.
Second.
This is moved by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Christensen. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Kelly Coughlin, you have 2 minutes.
Yes. So I'm Kelly Coughlin. I'm the CEO of the Snow Valley Regional Chamber. And as most of you guys know, I was asked not to be in this study. And I'm really kind of saddened a little bit because I'm the only sitting person in our area that votes on the King County Affordable Housing Association. And there's a lot of things that we are trying to do and trying to help with. And our business owners, for those of you who don't realize this, $15 an hour is $30,000 a year. So if there's 2 of them working people at $15 an hour, that's 60,000. That's not who we are. Most of the people that are working here make between $22 to $25 an hour. So we are missing that completely. We have to get our AMI from 80 to 120% AMI for our area. And so that this plan does not have that set in there. And I just want to make sure that maybe we can have another conversation and see what is actually needed through our works that we're currently doing. And like, again, I wasn't asked to be part of it. So I just want to make sure that, again, I am the only voting person that can vote for this whole area for the that sits on that housing committee. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? So please raise your hand. Looking at no one's raising one hand and no one else in City Hall. Okay. So actually, our Director of Community Development, Emily Artecha, did you want to maybe address that? Maybe, and I think you also have Matt Covert online as well. So we had the conversation 2 weeks ago. And then, so what is the purpose of this plan? And then what are the other plans that public will have a lot of comment and ability to talk to and be part of what Kelly's concerned about?
Sure. Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. And thank you, Kelly, for those comments. There are a number of other work products associated to housing in the mix. This particular document is a statewide requirement. It includes a housing needs analysis and then a housing action plan, which we have relabeled as a housing strategy plan. It is the final draft. As you recall, 2 weeks ago, we presented it to you in a draft format, and you made some comments. So we have LDC here tonight to walk through the changes that have been made, including a summary statement about how the total amount of actions within the plan won't allow for us to meet the entire growth target. And the housing strategies, they do not go into the depths about projected affordable need at the various AMIs, but we do have a middle housing study currently underway, which will conduct a thorough analysis about middle housing, and those units are intended to be more affordable. And then we also have a housing plan as part of the comprehensive plan. It's the housing element in which the city can go through and establish goals and policies to help meet the needs of our citizens, including the most affordable units and the range that would help address Kelly's need. Happy to answer any questions. If not, I'll go ahead and introduce Matt Covert. Do you have any questions?
Councilor Benson?
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand everything, but I can't get over the sense of frustration that our city is spending tens of thousands of dollars on these studies to create plans that are never going to address the the demands that are unrealistically passed down from Olympia on us to magically create all of this affordable housing. So I don't know how to protest that and have a problem with that, because it's ridiculous that we have to spend so many of our citizens' dollars on something that we know perfectly well is never going to work. It's just, we're throwing money down a rat hole. And feel like that needs to be said more often. I think Jim has something to say.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, so I completely share Councilmember Benson's point of view. And I'd like to add to that with this focus on these AMI levels that he's referring to, these lower AMI levels, where look, there's tremendous need, but what we know to be the biggest need in Snoqualmie is at higher AMI levels. And I think that's what hopefully I understood Ms. Coughlin was trying to focus us on, is as I look at the plans and where we're focusing our effort, we're distracted, I feel, if that's the right word, or we're certainly focused onto a certain AMI level when and therefore our biggest need in Snoqualmie is not being addressed. So that's the further impact, is just we don't seem to be making much progress on solutions at the AMA levels we really most need in Snoqualmie.
Councilor Watton.
Thank you, Mayor. And I certainly echo the concerns that Ms. Coughlin and Councilmember Benson and Councilmember Mayhew brought up. For the past 4+ years, I've been involved in the King County affordable housing discussions and sitting alongside and helping to share kind of the private sector's view on housing and the impact that it has. The concern is this, and having been around this for 30+ years of the discussion of affordable housing, our 900+ housing units that we are short, we do not have the land, we do not have the water to service within the confines of our community. We are the highest impact in Snoqualmie Valley of all the communities, and it's set by the Department of Commerce, but these numbers make no sense. I've already had conversations with the mayor of Black Diamond, and she's in agreement. They're in the same predicament of unreasonable demands. The Snoqualmie Valley Housing Task Force launched following our summit in September, and we came up with some recommendations, and we are waiting for the buildable lands inventory with a couple recommendations. And I want to make sure that it's not lost through this process. First, we're looking for 1 to 2 parcels that the city owns that we can consider as a council to surplus with the intention of addressing affordable housing, that we would put together a citizens task force to evaluate those applications that come in as an RFP. It's been done in the city of Ellensburg, it's been done elsewhere in the state, and that we can address this sooner. My concern is the study that's before us right now, the strategy plan, is not going to give us results soon enough. And if we take the route that the task force, which has 25 members within our community across Snoqualmie Valley, that we can get there faster with the right size project. However, what we are given by the state is unrealistic. It's unrealistic of a rural community. And Kelly's voice is the only voice of rural communities of the 38 cities within King County. And so it is very important for both cities to participate. And we've had a lot of conversations with North Bend, and I'm a little bit dismayed that we have not had the input or have been consulted about affordable housing as part of this plan. We don't want that loss. We have a need to fix it. And as Councilmember Mayhew pointed out, we're challenged because our cost of living here is 20%, if not more, higher than the rest of King County. But we're being forced in this AMI that is incredibly low and is just absolutely unrealistic. And then the last one, and that is City Administrator Dave Miller from North Bend has this huge concern about when the state dictates and we try to bend to it. And then what are the consequences? Because he's been in California and has had that happen where the consequences aren't lined up until years down the road. And then it comes back that they start withholding public funds for things that are valuable here. And that's our concern is we need to stand for ourselves. We need to stand for everybody that needs affordable housing, but we also need to do it in a way that the state understands and the state decides that they need to modify their approach. It's not a one size fits all. And lastly, and that is most of the projects on affordable housing is around transit-oriented development. We are an island. We're not serviced by Metro. We are designed to fail, and we need to fix that. And I appreciate the fact that the mayor has taken this up, that of making Metro pay more attention in the future, but our work is not done. And we need to continue as this council, in this community, we need to continue to fight for what is just and right for our community. So that's our concern. We do not want to take away from the work of this, the strategy plan, but we want to make sure that our concerns of this community and the things that we've done for the last almost decade is included and reflected in that plan. Thank you.
So I think this plan has been, there's a list, can you name where it's been in planning commission and community development and council? So I think, so two things, I mean, there's always opportunities for public comment and engagement on this. But also we have a chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force that doesn't sit on community development. And so there's not a good connection there on having these affordable housing conversations with council unless we do it here. So how do we kind of intertwine? How do we get the focus, conversations through community development to do that? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I appreciate all that has been said by everyone so far, and there are a lot of frustrations about the commands that have come from on high onto us that we're supposed to meet. My understanding is that this document is not intended to meet those particular things. It isn't lining up, this is how we're going to get this number at this AMI, et cetera. But what it does address is the concept of affordability. And one of the things I do appreciate about it is addressing the issue of supply, where that's where I think that the entire east side of King County is really lacking, is in supply. The reality is that when Snoqualmie Ridge was built, it was overwhelmingly built for single family homes. That's where the land is that can be built. We can't build down in the floodplain. The UGA, there is a small buildable section. There's a little bit that can be done there, but that's not going to bail us out either. The Ridge is a huge place. And if we don't find a way to allow townhomes to be built throughout the Ridge, where people want to, not forcing them to, I want to be clear. But if someone wants to, that they should be allowed to, then I don't think that we're ever going to get the supply that we need that could make this city affordable for people at 120 AMI, which is where we have a need. We don't necessarily have an intrinsic need that is coming from the city and its residents, and people want to live here at some of those lower AMI levels. Where we are having the need that is coming from the city and from our residents and from people who want to live here is at those slightly higher levels, the 80 to the 120, maybe even a little bit higher than that. And that's where we really need to meet our supply to meet the needs of our city. Now, technically on paper, we have to, of course, meet the guidelines that have been sent down to us, but that doesn't mean that those have to actually be done. What I think that we really do need to do within the next, say, 20 years or so is find a way to increase our housing supply. And I see very few opportunities outside of the ridge to make that happen. I realize that there's an HOA and that there are a lot of rules and regulations related to that. And I think that's something that our state legislators are going to have to look at to give us the tools to relook at how that all was developed.
Did you want to hear from Mr. Covert?
If you're ready.
Changes he made?
Yeah, Matt,
Yeah,
are you
oh
ready?
yeah, I really want to hear the changes.
Yeah, ready for your presentation?
Yes, I am ready. Thank you very much, council members. I really appreciate hearing folks' comments, and you know, I hear a lot of that frustration, both general and specific, with you know, sort of the confines of a state-funded grant program to look at stuff when, you know, there's kind of some structural things that are going on that are can kind of seem intractable. And so, yeah, I do want to just emphasize that this is the housing action plan with the, you know, the grant requirements from Commerce and all that is a good starting point, but you know, neither I nor anyone else would suggest that your work is done after this. Not just because of the comp plan, but because there is this, you know, there are a lot of kind of structural issues with where you are geographically and development pattern wise and relationships with neighboring communities and the regional market and all that that work is going to need to continue. And I'll also note that this is the plan, the strategy plan is geared at the things that the city can do, meaning that there is a whole universe of other things that the Councilmember Watton, that your affordable housing group can do, you know, and I think one of the things we're finding in the middle housing research is that there are some opportunities, you know, for example, some city-owned land that I think may be worth pursuing on that. That can exist kind of parallel to in support of work that the city as a governing institution, staff, council, planning commission does. And so I just want to note, just want to make sure that I'm not, you know, suggesting that this is the end all be all and you don't have to do anything else after this, but far from the case. But I really appreciate everybody's comments, and you know, very well taken. I think there are a lot of things that a lot of cities are dealing with, Snoqualmie even more so than most, coming from new state requirements that are really confusing for everyone. You know, I'm about as plugged into stuff coming out of the state as anybody, and I get confused a lot of the time. So just I share your confusion. I will give a brief overview of the changes that I made to the document in response to the comments, the great discussion that we had last time. And then I'll just kind of wrap it up if that's all right. Let me go ahead and share my very quick slides. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So as I mentioned, this is a follow-up from the May 8th meeting where we discussed the individual actions and strategy write-ups. This is a menu of things the city can consider doing to address housing needs without, as I said, without solving them all, because that's a moving target. But the goal is to ensure that the final document, the ideas in this document reflect, ideas that the council can get behind, even if they are insufficient to meet all of the needs, and also that they reflect the comments of council members, specifically at the May 8th meeting. And lastly, just emphasize that this is working toward the comprehensive plan and development regulations updates that are going to need to be done, that are kind of the crux of what a lot of what Snoqualmie is wrestling with right now. So this is just an overview of the changes that were made after the final draft. The first version of the final draft was presented to you all a couple weeks ago. I'm just going to go through those changes at a pretty high level. There's page numbers cited in here. I just kind of give a sort of the reasoning and the broad description of what the changes were without reproducing all of the text. And if anybody has any questions about it, we can go to those specific pages if you'd like, but I'm just going to give you a relatively high level overview of the changes since the May 8th meeting. So just that there were a few general housekeeping things, just to make sure we're being clear on all the changes, no matter how minute here. So we did all the photos in the plan, so we cited ourselves. Probably not necessary, but I like being able to cite photos when we can, and it makes for so that people can follow up and if they've got questions about a photo or whatnot. So we did put the photo credits in, updated page numbers. We did change a little bit of formatting in terms of bullets, but the general housekeeping was very light. This is the substantive stuff now. So as Emily mentioned, there was a paragraph inserted. This is page 6 of the executive summary. So to clarify the relationship between the housing strategy plan and the growth targets, namely that there are some actions and strategies discussed in here that will help chip away at that, but that this is not intended to outline a path to accommodating all of the growth, projected growth overall and at those individual income levels, because that is sort of just well beyond the scope of the housing action plan grant program from the state. We added a vicinity map on page 10. This is some of the mapping that we're doing as part of the middle housing project. We were like, hey, we could make a really nice vicinity map for the housing strategy plan as well. So we did that. The middle housing definition. So this wasn't a comment or a question at the meeting, but as I'm sure many of you are very well aware, there were a number of housing laws bills that became law earlier this month, and actually stretching into last month as well. But specifically, the description of middle housing that was in there was an earlier description cobbled together from some Department of Commerce guidance. And now there is an official definition that will be part of the Growth Management Act that defines what middle housing means. And so I updated that section to reflect that, because it's really helpful when we're all kind of working from the same working definition and legal definition of what something is with regard to state requirements. This is a question that was posed at the last meeting, and sort of when could Snoqualmie see results? So I modified the implementation table here. It's kind of like a decision matrix to help staff and planning commission and council kind of figure out what to tackle when. And there was a question to see if we could add a little more information about kind of when you could expect to see results from something. And while acknowledging that that's very much dependent on when when those changes are made, kind of when a change is made, kind of just a rough ballpark of, is this something where you could maybe see some impact on the particular population that is being discussed, or the issue that's being discussed? How soon could you maybe see meaningful progress being made, whether it's number of units, or reducing cost burden, or a particular population like seniors or something, where every unit built is intended for a particular population. sort of when you could potentially begin to see results. And I grouped it into a few different categories, sort of within 2 years, which is a short-term kind of thing where if you maybe made some investments or code changes or had some new programs, you could maybe begin to see, you could see results pretty quick from a planning standpoint. I know that 2 years seems like a long time, but within 2 years, that covers a lot of municipal code change type things that could start to bear fruit relatively quickly without having to go through a comprehensive plan or a development agreement or something like that. Then there's within 5 years, within 20 years, and so on. And if you look through the revised plan, you'll see that every one of these action write-ups now has a when could Snoqualmie see results change identified. Moving on to other changes in the write-ups. So the ADUs one, this is actually also in response to the change to state law, House Bill 1337 on accessory dwelling units. I added a lot of material on that because it is really germane to, ADUs were one of the discussed actions, and the ADU landscape kind of changed in terms of what cities can have to allow or what cities can do to regulate particular uses, in this case ADUs, and also to reflect that this is very much a moving target, a work in progress, I guess you could call it, because the law itself is quite vague, and there's a lot of details that are going to need to get ironed out by the Department of Commerce through the rulemaking process and issuing guidance to communities, and honestly, communities trial and error, communities trying to put this into action and seeing how it goes. And so there's specific stuff that the city is going to have to do with the code that was not the case. It was not the law when we wrote the plan. It's an indication of like how quickly things can change, but things that the city's going to need to pay attention to. I talk a little bit in there about, a potential methodology for outlining how many ADUs one might expect to see over the planning period, and thus starting that discussion of, to what extent ADUs can be used toward your growth target. And so there's some language in there on that, and just kind of a thought process that the city could consider going through and evaluating that information. Obviously, there's going to be more information to come from the state on this and from other communities working through it, but I needed to add that because it was very relevant to the action related to accessory dwelling units.
Just 1 second, Mr. Cover, we have a question. Councilor Johnson?
Yes, it's more of a comment for an FYI to council that at the last Community Development Committee meeting, we had an extensive discussion about ADUs, and staff presented us with a table that they've already mapped out of what the new law on ADU says and what our code says, and seeing what the similarities are and the differences and the things that we need to update. So we went ahead and said, it looks to me like we're ready to go to Planning Commission and start drafting up some code amendments for our city to make sure that we are in compliance with state law and that we're all up to date.
Thank you. That's great. That's about as fast as this can move, which is fantastic. It only became law. It became law actually on the day of the last meeting for this. So, a couple weeks later, here we are working to get the wheels moving on that. So thank you. There was a question at the last meeting about additional information on potential partners. I added some language there on page 57. This is related to the recruiting and partnering with affordable housing specialists. The SEPA exemptions, there's some questions about there, some questions on that. I added some language on how a planned action could potentially be used within the urban growth area, paired with annexation and study of potential development of that area. And there's going to be more information that we're working on through the middle housing program and the comp plan as well on sort of assumed densities, and if there's going to be implementing of a zone that's not implemented yet in code, kind of looking at some assumptions on that. But that might be an opportunity to kind of get some more units to market a little bit faster, a little bit of permitting process reform that could be used. That might be a good that SEPA exemption, particular exemption, might be a good tool to use in the urban growth area. So just added some language on that. short-term rentals. So I just did a little language clarity on page 61. I also got feedback from staff about an existing requirement for a business license. So that's been updated as well. Compared to the draft that was issued, this action has really, has evolved somewhat to really focus on, short-term rentals are not something that the city wants to heavily regulate, and there is value in kind of thinking about the benefits of them, in addition to the benefits of units like ADUs and single-family homes being used for long-term housing, kind of balancing that. So this has been one where really appreciated the feedback from folks. The room rentals one, so I know there was a lot of interest in this one at the meeting. So I added a bunch of information about how other jurisdictions in the region are grappling with that family household definition in a way that relates to how rooms for rent could be considered. I also added some language on the limitations to how data are collected, and some very early, very early and rough numbers on just kind of could this be used for a growth target? How do we understand how many of these are out there? Do we even need to understand how many there are? And so there's some language in there. I mentioned at the last meeting about how collecting data on this is really problematic because there's some selection bias going on in who would respond to a sort of a call for people to, whether it's register these or just like a survey or something. You're going to get some selection bias. I did suggest in there that you could potentially include some educational information on this, specifically for people who contact the community development department about accessory dwelling units, to see if sometimes people get sticker shock with ADUs, and so this might be a way of kind of introducing this idea to folks and seeing how they respond, and you might get more of a sense of how many of them are out there through that process. But it's difficult. There's this is a pretty informal thing, and it's usually not very heavily regulated. So it's more in this case about, like I said, about making sure code doesn't stand in the way, and then making sure people know their rights. And that's where I kind of focused a lot of my efforts on this one. So education on language on parking. There was a question about parking at the meeting on May 8th, and a lot of questions about public education and outreach. So I changed some language in the table. I added some language to the narrative, specifically about, on page 64, about the kinds of outreach and to whom and what kinds of things might be emphasized. And I think this is a really interesting one because there's a lot of when you have a whole bunch of people potentially serving as small scale landlords, there's issues and opportunities, and I think I tried to do a little more to talk about those. Lastly, tenant protections. This write-up, there were, as with many other things, there were new bills that were passed related to this, so I updated the sheet to include that. Two bills that were signed into law also on May 8th. I also talked about, and this is related to the room rentals thing, I added a lot of language in here on page 66 through 67 about landlord education and how critical that is, in addition to the tenant, making sure tenants know their rights. Because if you're looking at room rentals as a way of potentially addressing a gentle way of addressing housing issues, shortfalls in particular household sizes and needs, that it's really critical that you get the landlord education piece of it right too, because someone renting out their room in effect becomes a small scale landlord, and there's a lot of education that needs to go on there on both sides. So that is the scope of my changes. Before I just kind of close this up, any questions about any of those?
Councilor Benson?
Yeah, it's really more of a comment. I complained about paying you, and I apologize for that. I hope you understand that my point is I'm upset that we're being given an impossible task that we need to come up with an imaginary solution for. I'm very pleased with your work, and I appreciate the practical things that you found for us to address. so that we can ameliorate our housing situation in Snoqualmie. And I think all of us are excited by the kinds of things in this. And I hope that you don't take any of the things that I said personally, because I personally think you've done a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. No, yeah, absolutely. No offense taken. There's, I may be a consultant, but I am a planner. So I have stood in front of plenty of planning commissions who, there's councils, planning commissions, there's frustrations, and planning is complicated. and I'm very accustomed to that. So not a problem at all. I totally get it. I'll also note that like I've had like, we talk to the state all the time. We've had more than our fair share of conversations with commerce lately and legislators about some of this. A couple of years ago, the first round of communities that did housing action plans did a lot of stuff where the state said, hey, here's some money to study this and find out what your issues are and solve some of these issues your own way, come up with your own solutions for it. So we and other consultants worked with a bunch of cities, and many of them did things on ADUs where we spent, weeks and weeks and weeks going through changes and coming up with something that worked for a particular community. And then now the state says, just kidding, now you can't do any of that and you're gonna have to go back and do it all over again. It's like, yeah, I get it. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Watton.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on our conversation this evening, I move that we postpone the adoption of AB 23-059 to our next council meeting, June 12th, with the intent to have a workshop, a council workshop, and include Ms. Coughlin in those discussions before coming back and considering this. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
It's moved by Councilor Watton and second by Councilor Washington to move this to the next council meeting, but in the meantime, hold a workshop to have further discussion on this housing strategy plan. Any discussion? Councilor Watton.
Mayor, thank you. I just want to point out that on the council, we have the chair of the Public Policy Committee of the Housing Task Force, Councilmember Washington. We also have on the council, Councilmember Christensen, who serves on the middle housing. And I would encourage that, the council consider us delaying this. We're no need to rush this. We need to get it right. And we need to speak with one voice. And we need to be very succinct with the Department of Commerce as to what is fair for a smaller community. And I totally agree that, these things that we're being asked are aspirational. But if we don't take action now, it could be detrimental for our community. And there is no need to rush this without further consideration.
Councilor Johnson.
Since I am not looking forward to adding yet another meeting to our schedule next week of committees, I am wondering if having the intent for our next community development committee meeting, which is always noticed as a committee of the whole, to be a council wide meeting where the intent would be that we would all be at that meeting and that could serve as said workshop.
Councilor Watton.
Just point of clarification, if I may. In the past, our committee of the whole has been outside of the Roberts Rules of Order that allows all members of this council to participate. And we're limited to the 3 members of the committee will only have participation. What I'm proposing is that we have a true committee of the whole and to include other stakeholders in the community that are representing our voice. So if it's amenable that we have the mayor chair the meeting and allow for a broader discussion without any vote, it's just simply a discussion And then we come back and council under code, and then be able to take a vote whether to pass or not to pass.
So next week is a fifth Monday, so there are not council
it's a fifth.
committees next week.
It's also
a It's-
holiday. It's also a holiday.
Right, potentially could be
Tuesday.
on Tuesday, for instance, a special meeting, but. Oh, wait a minute. So Councilor Johnson, you had your hand up and then.
Oh, I
Representative
was just gonna say,
Holland.
well then, since we wouldn't have committees next week, then Tuesday, I would not necessarily be quite so averse to.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
So I guess I'm confused and help me. I do not understand how passing this tonight would preclude that kind of engagement. I don't see anything in this strategy plan, whatever, that it either says we're only addressing those high level targets or we're only focusing in this manner. It has a broad spectrum and we can include the regional activities as well as stakeholders in those discussions moving forward. So help me how holding this hostage for that doesn't slow this all down.
Hang on for a second. Oh, that he had. Councilor Mayhew, you had your hand up?
Well, yeah, I like Councilmember Watten's idea of getting more discussion on this broader topic. I had a similar thought to Councilmember Holloway, which is I don't necessarily see a need to hold up this item to do that, but if that's what gets it done, I'm fine with that. I think what Councilmember Watten was suggesting is I completely support. I would like to see it though, not so rushed. I honestly think we'll find that that's the first meeting in a series of meetings we're going to need to really go into to really try and figure out solutions and outcomes. And so rather than add another meeting in what's otherwise a week, a meeting-free week, at least council meeting-free week, I'd like to see us just hold a council of a committee of the whole meeting, maybe in the hour before our next council meeting.
Emily.
Yes, Mayor Ross, Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. I have just two comments. This particular work product is tied to commerce funding with a specific deadline of work products that need to be submitted by the end of June for reimbursement, for full reimbursement of all the costs that we've incurred. So just letting you know about that. I do think that you are ripe for a series of discussions, whether those be roundtables before the council meeting or executive sessions, because I think there is a pivotal point on what do you want to do with the excess growth that doesn't fit into the perimeters of the corporate city limits. And this report states that it gives you the opportunity to say, hey, we could use this document any way we want to, whether we go back for a reconciliation at the time that the comprehensive plan is about to be adopted, which means that you make a formal statement with the county saying we cannot produce that much housing. Simply can't. We did the homework, we did the reports, our housing needs analysis and our strategy plan supports it. It says it right here. It shows it. We've got for half a dozen or more strategies. None of them will work to solve the problem that you gave us. We can also go ahead and consider other options like changing the growth target itself, which is another process led through the King County Growth Management Planning Commission, the GMPC. Or we could kick the can and deal with this problem sometime down the future, which other council members mentioned here today, which in itself can cause other problems down the road. You know, if you look at what happened to folks that worked in California and tried to do that. So I think there's enough ripe there for many discussions about what to do. And then again, you've got not just the growth targets, but this projected affordable need. It matches the growth target. In a nutshell, we have growth in the pipeline right now that we're accounting for. That's how we get down to about 600 units or so that don't fit into the city limits, but we don't have the same pipeline built up for projected affordable need at the various AMIs, except for the recent mill site PCI plan, which doesn't actually have any permits yet submitted to be built. So in a nutshell, that's what I'll say about that. Happy to answer any questions.
But you also have the buildable lands that's coming and the middle housing study that's coming. So I don't know that we have all the information yet to get to work. And there's also, I guess I'll talk about it now. So this past week, I attended the King County Growth Management Planning Council, and the city, so myself and others, as well as King County Councilmember Perry and also Mayor McFarland, have been working with them to change the county planning policies. And so right now it's a 4-to-1. We were able to get them to move, well, they did approve this and takes public comment and final King County Council approval. We were able to get them to do a 4-to-1 program that includes the JPA, not the 1994 line, but the JPA, which would then allow certain properties outside of our urban growth area to come in, that we'd have an option to annex them in. So that would be properties that's like between 99 and the Parkway, so over near the diverging diamond, you're near I-90. So that is in the works too. So there potentially could be more property that if we needed to, could move into the city. And because it's 4-to-1, it's restricted to residential only. But we're also, we have requested if you could do mixed use as well, because it's, so you have some stores and stuff over there, but most likely it would just be residential. So that is an option as well. Councilor Johnson?
Want to go down that rabbit hole. I think that I concur with Councilmember Mayhew's thoughts that we go ahead and take care of this tonight. It's not an ordinance, so we don't have to do a second reading. That way we've got it down as kind of a general strategy that's got lots of things laid out that we could use for various things. And let's go ahead and start having meetings before our council meetings in that hour beforehand, as appropriate. And I'll defer to the Mayor Pro Tem and the administration to work out that schedule and FNA, et cetera. So I think that for the motion that is currently on the table, I think that I'm going to vote no on that, but that doesn't mean that I'm against the underlying idea that we move forward and we start having some of these conversations at roundtables.
Any other comments? Councilor Washington?
Yeah, just a point of clarity. So if we vote on the motion tonight and it's approved, besides the reimbursement, what else are we committed to the state? What are our commitments?
Well, then, I think it's just,
There are no more commitments.
it's grant funded. So we just need the resolution by the end of June. And then
For
we
the
can use it.
reimbursement piece of it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've fulfilled our statutory requirements.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the table to move AB 23-059 Snoqualmie Housing Strategy Plan, remove it from this agenda, hold a council workshop, and bring back to council on June 12th. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
No.
Nay.
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 Okay, so 1 in support and 6 nay, voted no. So we will look at a date that we can start holding the council workshops. I think we are going to have something else, some other council workshop right before the council meeting on June 12th. So we could, if anyone wants, we could start having discussions next week, or do you want to stick to the hour before council meetings?
So potentially we're thinking a roundtable for our council meeting on the 12th.
I think for a different topic.
We have
Right.
already one scheduled for that.
Okay, okay. So we'd have to do something next week. I'm open to next week. Oh, Councilmember Mayhew.
Councilor Mayhew?
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. We're about to have a discussion a little bit later in this meeting about exactly the topic of not doing something like that next week and the burden that our meetings are putting on staff. So I think I'd rather than sort of solve this under the gun. I have a sense that we all agree with Councilmember Watt and that we really need to increase the level of discussion here, both at the full council, as well as I think he said, bringing in people like Ms. Coughlin and perhaps he alluded, I thought he alluded to other community leaders. But so getting that going, I think is worth doing rather than trying to shoot from the hip here. I think maybe we could ask Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor to, and perhaps FNA to try and come up with sort of a plan to have those meetings and then, hear from them rather than try and figure it out this moment. I do think that we ought to avoid adding meetings next week. It's exactly what staff is asking us not to do.
That's fine. I think we're going to have more information coming as well, as we talked about the buildable lands and middle housing. So we will work with Mayor Pro Tem Holloway on establishing a future date.
So let's have a discussion in FNA, and planning director, if you'll join us for the next one, to lay out where we have as part of the FNA discussion. And
Great.
not just Holloway. I'd come up with a schedule you wouldn't like. Let's do it in FNA, move forward from there.
So we do need to vote then on AB 23-059 Snoqualmie Housing Strategy Plan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those opposed? All those in favor,
Nay.
say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, so we have 2 opposed, Councilor Benson, Councilor Watton, and 5 yeses. Right, thank you. Moving on, the first committee report for Parks and Public Works, AB 23-063, amendment with RH2 Engineering for Water Reclamation Facility Phase 3 services during construction. Councilor Benson, would you please read the summary and motion?
I think Mayor Pro Tem Holloway is going to take this one since he was at the meeting. I was unable to attend.
Right, Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, would you please read the summary and motion?
You knew that was coming up, didn't you? You just did that. Excuse me, let me get to it. Not that one, that one. All right. Agenda Bill AB 23063, amendment to H2 Engineering for Water Reclamation Facility Phase 3 services during construction. Let me get down here. Following council approval, staff will work with the mayor to execute amendment number 3 with RH2. RH2 will submit a review equipment procurement early September, so on and so on. Please, I'll let you read the agenda bill as you see fit. Motion is moved to approve the amendment with to the WRF Waste Reclamation Facility Phase 3 Design Services Agreement with RH2 Engineering. May I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and second by Councilor Watton. Any public comment regarding this agenda item? So please raise your hand. Not seeing anyone online or in City Hall raising their hand. Okay. Who can speak to this? Mr. Jeff Hamlin, he's our interim Parks and Public Works Director.
So as you all probably know, we are doing upgrades to the wastewater treatment facility to the tune of about $11 million worth of upgrades. And this is for construction management services during that process. And something we have to have. We have a timeline. The costs are within our budget, and we seek your approval to move forward with it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? And the motion passes unanimously. And AB 23-063 is approved. The second committee report for Parks and Public Works is AB 23-065, resolution number 1649, awarding a Public Works contract to CPM Development Corporation, DBA Icon Materials for the Snoqualmie Parkway Rehabilitation Project, and authorize the mayor to sign. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
Yep. This agenda bill seeks approval to award a public works contract CPM Development Corporation DBA Icon Materials for Snoqualmie Parkway Reclamation Project, authorize the mayor to sign the contract. Move to adopt resolution 1649 awarding a public works contract to CPM Development Corporation DBA Icon Materials for construction of the Snoqualmie Parkway Rehabilitation Project and authorize the mayor to sign. May I
Second.
have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and second by Councilmember Johnson. Is there any public comment regarding this item? If so please raise your hand.
I did that time.
Not seeing anyone online in City Hall. Is there any discussion regarding this item? I believe we do have our project engineer and
Yes,
online.
Hin's available if there's any specific questions. Jeff's available if you want a brief summary. I'm available if you want a brief summary.
Well, in short, this is starting the Snoqualmie Parkway rehabilitation in preparation for discussions and turnover to the state.
That is correct.
This is a good thing. That's why we didn't do it consent plus the dollar figure here. But this is a good thing for us to start to get everything ready and get the parkway fixed up and ready to transfer over.
That's mostly, yeah, I would say that's true. Mostly, due to lobbying by council, we were able to acquire funding. An appropriation of $5 million for this project from the state. We just conducted bids. We had good bid results. The bids came in at $3.7 million and change. So we're actually less than the appropriation. So we don't get to keep that money that we're not spending, but we will be able to get 100% funding of repaving the parkway. So that's all good news. And so we're here to seek approval to start that project and sign the contract.
Councilor Mayhew, do you have a comment?
Yeah, this sounds great. We should proceed. I did just want to make the comment that I hope we we take advantage of all eligible costs, including to the extent that we can reimburse costs not external, as in this contract, but anything that's properly reimbursable up to that 5 million, we should make sure that we include in our reimbursement request. But that's just a comment to the side. I'm in support of this agenda bill.
Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I asked was there anything else we can get since we have some more money? And unfortunately, apparently not.
Yeah, the answer is no to that, simply because before we get the funds obligated, we have to provide a scope of services that we're seeking funding for. So we can't now, after the fact, go and change the scope without approval by the state. Yeah, not likely.
Councilor Johnson again.
Yeah, and one other thing was that, I mean, it kind of goes somewhat without saying that that's kind of an important road to our citizens. And I want to get it right, that we are spending a lot of money here, but also it's not as much as some of us were anticipating. So that led to some concerns, is this company going to do a good job? Are they, I shouldn't name any company. Anyway, are they going to do a good job or not? Or are the roads going to start falling apart after a couple of years and then our citizens are going to get rightfully upset about it? But, I don't certainly have any sort of background to review an applicant for doing this kind of project. So deferring to our engineers and our staff who are experts in this subject matter I felt reassured that that this company was very reputable and that we could expect good work from them. And they shared that they also had the same concern of, I mean, they're gonna get in big trouble too, right? If things don't work out well. But they reassured me at least that that they're a good company.
And we will have adequate supervision on the job.
Yeah, right.
Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. It is approved. Okay, thank you. Next item is we moved, so we're going to the AB 23-075, Information Technology Director Confirmation and Oath of Office. And so we're very excited to introduce our new Director of Information Technology, Mo Hafiz, who brings over 15 years of executive experience in information technology, including government, cybersecurity, engineering, and consulting experience. And if confirmed, he will be starting June 5th. And there was a date mix-up. We were thinking that we would also confirm him on June 5th, the same day he started, but so he stopped whatever he was doing, and he is here now. So he is online. So we will go ahead and first of all, confirm, is there any discussion first of all? Council?
Do we need to move?
Do you want the proposed action read into the?
Yes, we do need the read in, please.
Okay. Move to approve Mo Hafiz effective June 5th as the city's Snoqualmie Director of Information Technology and city clerk to administer the oath of office. May I have a second?
Second.
This is moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and second by Councilor Vincent. To approve the confirmation of our new IT Director, Hafiz. Council, is there any discussion or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? It's unanimous, and we will be appointing Mr. Hafiz to IT Director. And I have your oath of office. We will read this. We can see Mr. Hafiz. There he is. Okay.
Guys, hand up already.
Okay. There he is. So we'll start with say aye and then your name.
I, Mohsen Hafiz,
Having been duly appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council of City of Snoqualmie,
having been duly appointed and confirmed by the mayor and the city of Snoqualmie
to the office of Information Technology Director of the City of Snoqualmie, Washington,
to the office of the Information Technology Director of the city of Snoqualmie, Washington,
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by law to the best of my ability,
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office as prescribed by law,
and that I will support and maintain the ordinances of the City of Snoqualmie
and I will support and maintain the ordinances of the city of Snoqualmie
and the laws and Constitution of the State of Washington and of the United States.
and the laws and the Constitution of the state of Washington and the United States.
Excellent. You are confirmed. Congratulations, Mr. Hafiz.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I'm glad to be part of the team. Thank you guys for doing this remotely. As Mayor Ross had mentioned a few moments ago, there was a little mix up as far as the dates. So good evening to you guys. I know it's late and I look forward to working with all of you on the information technology initiatives that we will be working on in the near future.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Do you need to get a picture with him?
Stand up next to the screen.
We will get a picture next time you're in council chambers. So thank you. All right. Okay, moving on to First committee report is for Finance Administration is AB 23-072 incentive retention pay for eligible employees. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, would you please read the summary and motion?
The purpose of the agenda bill is for council consideration and approval of an incentive retention pay program for eligible employees. Motion to approve a memorandum of understanding pertaining to the retention incentive pay program for Teamsters Local 763 and to authorize payroll installments once budget appropriations is authorized by City Council pursuant to Agenda Bill 23068. May I have a second?
Second.
This is moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and second by Councilmember Washington. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Do you have someone raising his hand? LT, did you want to make public comment? So your name and city of where you're from.
The city in which I work or which I reside. My name is LT Liebetrau. I'm an employee of the city of Snoqualmie. I work at the Snoqualmie Police Department. I reside in the city of Snohomish.
Thank you.
I want to apologize if at the outset my comments are inappropriate because not that I intend to say anything inappropriate, but just in regard to my being a member of the bargaining unit. And I know that this isn't a time to bargain. I just want to make a quick comment about the incentive. And I know that it's just here to be voted on and not to be changed in any way or anything like that. I know that the coronavirus pandemic is not mentioned in this incentive, but from the dates that are involved of March 1st, 2020, it seems like it was targeting folks who had been around for that experience. During that time, at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, I worked as a dispatcher at the Issaquah Police Department servicing Snoqualmie and North Bend as well. I think there's maybe a thought in how this is laid out that clerical employees, administrative employees had the opportunity to work from home during that time. I just wanted to mention that as a dispatcher and then later coming here mid-pandemic.
Point of order.
Go right ahead. Sorry.
Mayor, point of order.
Your point.
Can we get legal advice as to whether it's proper for a member of a bargaining unit to bargain directly with the city council on an MOU with their bargaining unit?
Well, it depends on how the council receives the comments provided. If this is just an opportunity for public comment for general members of the public to provide feedback on a item before the council, then I believe that public comment is proper. If it strays into trying to obtain different terms than what we're bargained for, then it would be improper and the council could decline to hear further.
Thank you, Mayor, and hopefully we can restore whatever time I've taken from the speaker.
Thank you. We did stop the clock. Okay.
Is it okay to continue or do you want to?
Is fine to continue?
Yes.
Okay. We have a minute and 30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you. I just want to mention for the support staff at the police department, there is not really the opportunity to work from home for the work that we do. I myself working with doing backgrounds on folks for firearm purchases, concealed pistol licenses, and having a role in the records process for case management at the police department. It requires my presence at the police department where I deal with hazardous materials, including drugs and personal effects have been taken in from individuals that have made contact with the police. I also have public contact from folks who arrive at the police department. At any rate, there's also liability with the things that we do in the criminal justice process. That criminal justice process starts with the officers and the contact with the public, and it ends at one point with their processing through the court system. But in between, the support staff, the administrative staff, of which I am a part, have a role to play in order to process those cases. and help those citizens or those offenders or whatnot through the process. It is something that requires our presence, our participation, and our professionalism. The way that the MOU classifies employees as either basic or essential, with the implication that those who are not, who are basic are inessential. Sorry, that was my time.
Yeah, you
I'm
can
sorry.
finish your.
Oh, I'm
thought
sorry.
and then-
Yes, just to finish, the way that it characterizes those who are basic as implies that they are non-essential, I thought was just indelicate. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Council, we do have our Director of Finance and HR. If you have any questions regarding this MOU.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, I'm here to answer any questions. This is the fourth employee group. The council had established this incentive retention pay program back in November of 2022. The council approved MOUs for our police and firefighters union in February. This MOU mirrors the language that was in those MOUs, and it is intended to provide for an incentive and retention pay split up in the years so that folks want to stick around with the city. I'm happy to answer any questions about the agenda bill. Identified why staff proposed this to the council, and the council agreed to provide for this kind of a pay program as part of a number of efforts that the council has approved for retaining employees, providing with benefits. But nonetheless, we're happy to finally be at the last memorandum of understanding with our Teamsters bargaining group. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Benson.
I'd just like to say I really appreciated the comments that we received. One of the really gross things that happened during the pandemic was the division of our population into the essential and non-essential, and the division of people's work into essential and non-essential. And that was incredibly insulting in a lot of ways. And to take it to a place where there are agreed upon essential workers, and to not also apply that to the staff supporting those workers, I think our speakers, our guest's point is really well taken. I know that the city of Snoqualmie is not responsible for all of those determinations, that a lot of those determinations were made at the state and even federal level. But to the extent that we as a city cannot participate in that kind of garbage, I would stand with our friend and say we should not.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so it's unanimous and the incentive retention pay for eligible employees is passed. Thank you. Next item is F&A committee is committee reform discussion, and our city clerk Dean, please lead the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight for your consideration are materials to open the discussion on committee reform. This is being brought to you at your request following the council retreat. And I just would like to say that much time and effort has been spent researching and gathering this information for you. The purpose of considering meeting reform is outlined in the memo. The top 3 reasons why include every council member benefits from the same message and from hearing fellow council member questions and discussion. It opens the opportunity for council members to attend local and regional meetings to address the larger issues that affect Snoqualmie. And it allows more time for staff to focus on long-term goals and projects. The chart has been provided, which reflects the minimum amount of time staff spends each month preparing and attending council and committee meetings. This is all in your packet. This is nothing that's new material here tonight. Another chart reflects meeting frequency for 8 other cities. In that chart, Snoqualmie has the most meetings per month. It indicates that council can have fewer meetings, yet still be an effective policymaker. I have prepared a presentation which also has been provided to you. First is an overview of our current meeting structure along with the identified problem areas with that schedule. This mirrors the 3 reasons why I just spoke to. On slide 2 and 3, staff have researched other cities and their meeting structures. And after reviewing other options on a calendar, the following 2 proposals are being submitted. As you will see, the proposals are nearly identical except for the day of the week. On slide 4, option A, which is keeping the existing council regular meetings and adding a council workshop session on the 1st and 3rd Mondays and eliminating committee meetings altogether. Option A benefits include that all council members receive the same message at the same time, which then leads to all council members benefiting from questions or comments raised by fellow council members. And I believe that we sort of ran into this issue tonight where things that were discussed at a committee meeting were not, the other council members weren't able to hear the benefit of or participate in that discussion. So and again, time would be made available for council members to attend other local and regional meetings. This would also allow for better coordination through separate meetings between the mayor and mayor pro tem for agenda setting and to address other issues that may arise. Agenda setting is not necessarily something that should be done in an open forum. It could be done outside in a separate meeting. And it also would allow additional time for staff to prepare materials, which will increase staff productivity and increase the quality of materials presented. As you all know, the council rules of procedure state that the council agenda should be out Thursday by 5. So if we have a holiday week where we have F&A on Wednesday, and then we have to get the agenda materials out the next day, there's really not a lot of time to do that. There's not a lot of time for staff to sort of tweak their materials to make them more presentable after feedback. And then there's not a lot of time for additional staff to actually put it together and send it out. And also fewer meetings means less overtime for staff, and it's more favorable to the budget. There are 4 potential issues with option A. Those issues and their potential solutions include the following. Some of this was taken from a neighboring city who identified these issues. So I'm just bringing them to your attention. I don't necessarily agree with them, but it is something to consider. It may be difficult to determine council direction. And then a potential solution to that would be for council to provide clear action items for staff at work sessions. Lack of specialization among council members. This could both be a positive and a negative. The positive is that all council members are informed about all issues instead of only the issues that affect their committees. The negative is that the chair role will no longer apply. The solution is that for items which require more in-depth discussion, ad hoc meeting committees or special task forces can be created, or the topic can be referred to a roundtable discussion. There's also conflicts with commission meetings. Adding work sessions to these Mondays conflicts with the Monday evening commission meetings, including arts, parks and events, and the planning commission. Insufficient time has been identified by a neighboring city. The solution is for informational items such as project updates or reports be included in the packets under information and not addressed during the meeting unless council has questions. These items would be attached, for example, to a staff report cover sheet, which I provided as an example in the packet. I'd like to ask the last item, if there's insufficient time for discussion, an item can always be referred to a roundtable, ad hoc, or a task force. So on the next slide, we have a potential process flow. I think that would be slide 7. Maybe. of an item as it moves. If we could maybe go to the next slide. As it moves through the council process. So you'll note that everything starts at the work session, then either is approved to move to a regular council meeting. It is referred to a roundtable, an ad hoc, or a task force for further discussion, or it is referred to the next work session for staff to do additional work. On the next slide, option B is similar to option A, except the work sessions and council regular meetings are held on Tuesdays instead of Mondays. So all of the benefits and potential solutions would be the same as with option A, except these would not conflict with the Monday evening commission meetings, and therefore would not affect the schedules for our 19 community volunteers we have on our commissions. So we do really appreciate our volunteers, and this would affect 19 other people's schedules. So that is why proposal would be for Tuesday. Option B would have the same process flow as option A, with the flexibility to refer to roundtable, ad hoc, or task force committees if needed. And they both have the same number of meetings per month. So, you know, that would be a benefit, right? Because then council members could then help out at the regional level, attend other meetings, and kind of represent Snoqualmie's interests. My proposal is just option B, just because of the volunteer, how it would impact our volunteers, but it would, and the proposal is for a pilot project for 6 months, just for the end of the year, and then we take it back and review how things went.
Thank you, City Clerk Dean. And I think either option A or B. Option A, we can also just work on moving commissions if we need to. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
Okay, there's a third option, which is option C, which is retain the current structure, which I will stipulate. We've had this questions 2 times before, and that's where we stuck with. I'll further stipulate an assumption of the quality of decisions of the cities is unsupported. I don't know that these cities do a better job or worse job than us based on their meeting structure. I have no metrics. There are no metrics. Incorrect statement to make. Okay. Further, the suggestion of setting the council agenda outside of a public meeting, I'll just say is wrong. I had other verbs in there, other adjectives in there, but it's wrong. Okay. So having said that, at this time, I believe we are participating in a failure of our responsibilities to ourselves and to those who elected us, in that we are rehashing an issue that has already been settled. If we do that on a continual basis, we're not going to get much done, guys. Okay. So I propose option C, which is retain our current structure. I do not entertain the idea of watering down the exposure of council and committees in this manner. We have addressed the issue of not everybody gets exposed to the same message by at least opening up the committee meetings to all council members can attend. Okay, so if you want to make time, be there. But it is important that at least the 3 council members on those committees do that deep understanding and have that level of engagement with staff in regard to those domains of subject. So I motion to table this indefinitely. May I have a second?
Second.
It's moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. And second by Councilor Mayhew to table this indefinitely.
He had his hand up too. I don't know if you want something else to say.
I do want to speak to the council rules of procedure 3.4, authority to settle agenda. The mayor, after conferring with the Finance Administration Council Committee chairperson, shall have final authority over which matters shall be included upon the agenda of council. The agenda shall be settled by the Wednesday preceding the Monday for which a meeting of council is scheduled. No agenda bill will be placed on the agenda without the mayor's written authorization. So it does not take FNA to approve the agenda. It takes Mayor Pro Tem or the
It
chair.
takes the chair of the FNA, which doesn't exist if the FNA doesn't exist.
It doesn't have to go through FNA though. it goes through the chair of FNA and the mayor.
And if mayor wants to push that point, we will change the council rules and procedures. Those are council rules and procedures you're quoting.
I'm just reciting it. You recited it. I'm reciting it.
I
Councilor Mayhew.
didn't recite. Go ahead.
I was going to speak to the original motion, but I think the motion we're talking to now is to postpone. So I don't have any further comments on that topic.
Councilor Watton.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I am going to vote no on this. And I've talked to many people in other cities, larger and smaller, and they do not have the number of committee meetings and council meetings that we have. And they seem to work quite well, and they prefer it. So I'm voting no.
Any other comments or discussion? Councilor Benson.
I know that if meetings end up being on Tuesdays, I'm gonna have to resign because I work on Tuesday nights. So whatever the option that we go with, I hope it's not that.
Right. So there's a motion on the table to table this.
Oh, we got Councilman Mayhew's hand up.
Before we have a second have you just speak second, we'll have Councilor Christensen, who has not spoken yet.
I just have a couple comments. The first, for some of the reasoning for having this, I don't agree with in terms of doing options A or B. Specifically for the comment that it would be more beneficial to go into the work sessions because the council members would receive the same message at the same time or benefit from the questions or comments raised by fellow council members. I do disagree because council members are invited to attend in person, online, and you're always allowed to review the publicly recorded videos that are posted. I do that every week. I think most of the council members on here do that every week. So I don't take a whole, or I don't put a whole lot of weight in those two comments. The things that do concern me are the amount of time that staff has to spend to prepare and answer questions and overtime. And those are the issues that carry the most weight for me personally. I'd like to see that go down, but I do have concerns about consolidating the meetings to the point where you don't have council members who are trying to do that deep dive into the initial for their specific area and their specific committee that they're being asked to serve on. I think that I would be concerned that you just wouldn't have the same level of detail and focus and things like that that we're able to do right now. So I'm hesitant about switching that up. And we have talked about it before, but I do think that it is important to go through and evaluate what's working and what isn't working. And I would like to see it somehow move to where there's less of a burden on staff time without losing the ability to delve into the issues. And I worry about having too many cooks in the kitchen on every single issue as well, just in terms of being able to actually make progress on the things that are important to our citizens and that must get done. I worry that it would just bog it down and then not every single action, but that a lot of things would get kicked down the road instead of being able to be pushed through to resolution. So those are my concerns and what weighs most heavily on my mind.
Councilor Washington.
I echo the same comments. While I am, very concerned about staff and quality of life and work balance, kind of being the freshman here on the council, I really do see the benefit of the committees and really being able to dig deeper and get even broader in some of those subjects.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yes, I would just point out that I never spoke on this topic. I was called on when my hand was not raised, and I did not speak to this previously. But in any event, I think the notion that other cities prefer not having committees is not a true statement. There are some. Councilmember Watton doesn't say things without doing his homework. There are some that prefer that. There are others that do not. For example, the city of Issaquah went for a brief period recently away from committees, found it absolutely was a disaster and did not work for a whole number of reasons. And they have gone back to committee structure because of that. So there are different points of view on this. Some cities prefer it, some do not. And without knowing those cities and the level of issues and so on, I think merely just referring Issaquah like I just did, or we could refer to North Bend, or we just picking names of cities without really going into what was better or worse, I think doesn't really help our conversation. So I 100% agree with the perspective I thought I heard from Councilmember Christensen, which is let's try and figure out what exactly about what we're doing isn't working well, and let's try and solve that. So for example, in tonight's meeting, we had 2 agenda bills that were up for discussion and which no council member raised a question on, but nonetheless, we had staff make presentations on. So I think we sometimes, when no question came from council, the thought that goes through my mind every time is, geez, why wasn't that on consent? So I think actually sometimes we're a little reluctant for various reasons to put something on consent. Maybe we need to relook at that. But I think, in fact, let me say it differently. I think we should relook at that. But I think counting the number of meetings is, I think, a useless, it doesn't really help the discussion. The question, I think, is how many hours of support are we asking from staff? And do we really need to do all of that? I believe we don't. I believe we could streamline how we're doing things within the committee structure. I will say that I very much appreciate that there are other committees that are really close to things. For example, Parks and Public Works. I review their agendas before they have, I review every committee agenda before they have their meetings. And if I have any thoughts or concerns, I usually contact the chair of the committee and simply say, hey, would you guys make sure you go over whatever my concern is, so that when this comes forward to the council, you'll have an answer. And that just worked very well for me. What I've found is virtually every concern I have, usually when that item comes to council, the chair speaks to it in their remarks, and my concerns are addressed. So I have, without having to go in and be part of each one of those meetings, and so we can rely on each other to really deep dive on things. And so I find that this works tremendously. If the real issue here that we're trying to get at is, hey, let's free up some of our staff time, I think we can do that. Let's do that. Let's use our committee structure better. For example, in F&A committee and other committees of community development, where we've come into a topic in the committee that we know the whole council will want to discuss. We stop the conversation. We don't have the conversation at the committee level, and we say, hey, let's just send that straight to council. For example, this very discussion we're having came to F&A, and we said, no, let's not discuss this at F&A. The whole council will want to weigh in. Send it straight to council. We can do that with roundtables. We can do that just as we've done here. So let's use our structure better to address the concerns of staff, but keep with the strength that we get as a council by having this committee structure. So that's my point of view. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Councilor Watton.
Just for the record, I'm going to point out 2 of the cities that I was referencing. One is the city of Kirkland, and they have abolished their committee structure. They only meet in council so that all the members, all 7, get the same information at the same time. The city of Issaquah has a number of commissions and boards. They are not council committees. Those are citizen committees that are appointed. So the point being, as well as North Bend. North Bend has fewer meetings, again, so that more of the information gets to all the council, and they do that through work sessions. So there's 3 cases of other cities doing things differently than we are doing. Thank you.
Councillor Benson.
I will say that hearing about cities that do it differently from us doesn't necessarily make this job. I mean, we're the best. So, you know, I mean, of course, we're going to do it different. But the thing that's attractive to me about these new options is the idea of being able to hear everything about what's going on in all the different committees, because I don't feel like I have a strong grasp of, for example, community development or FF&A. I don't have the background on that. The thing that concerns me about this idea, though, is that if we're all attending, we're all basically attending all of the meetings. I wonder how long our city council meetings are going to become, and I wonder if I can properly prepare for that many topics. The point that Councilman Mayhew was making, the opportunity to lean on others to do that kind of deep dive and then bring it to council after they, you know, the ability to say, I trust my fellow councilmen to get to the core issues and then come together as a city council. And certainly when we meet as a full council, there are insights and observations that council members make that weren't in the committee meeting that are helpful, but and sometimes illuminating, you know, because they've got fresh eyes to it. But I wonder if there's any chance that I will ever have fresh eyes if I'm trying to prepare for all of these different things before the meeting. So, you know, I absolutely see, and I love the idea of reducing the stress on our staff. I think Councilman Mayhew's ideas were really neat, and I think we definitely need to address how do we reduce that burden and that cost to the city of all those extra hours. So, but if there's, you know, some way to do all of these things and not necessarily say, okay, everybody, you're playing all positions now, get ready. You know, I'm the first one to admit I'm not Councilmember Christensen. I can't do it. But I think these are all very helpful. I think we can improve the way we do things now, so that we can address some of these really big issues. And I absolutely see the benefit of doing it with one of these new options. I think it's a tough call.
Councillor Mayhew.
Yeah, just want to say, comparing the city of Kirkland is a very dangerous thing to do for a city like ours. The city of Kirkland is a very different form of government. They do not have an elected mayor. So there's just so many differences in how a government like ours with an elected mayor works, that I think it's, you know, you really have to dig into that before you start making those comparisons. And then, you know, the other point, I would encourage all of us, talk to other council members at some of these other cities, just like Councilmember Watton has, just like I have, and get their points of view. I've found their points of view to be very, especially those that have switched, they have very strong points of view about the effectiveness. The number one comment I received was, you move away from committees, get ready for a lot a very long meeting. And it occurred to me that, well, geez, any of us could do that right now. Just go to every committee meeting. And you'll be doing the same thing then that you would be doing if we move away from committees. And I think that sort of, reinforces for me how much time we're talking about. This is not less time. This is more time. So anyway, no further comment.
Councilor Johnson.
If I had to guess what some of our ad hoc committees might be, they might look something like community development, parks and public works, public safety, and F&A. So then we would have those 4 ad hoc committees on top of our more global committee. So with that, I move to call the question.
Second.
So the call in question by Councilor Johnson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, call the question passes. Excuse me. So we had the motion to table this discussion of community reform. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, so it was 6, 4, and 1 against on the motion to table this discussion for committee reform. All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. I believe we are done with this discussion.
I just like to make sure that we are in agreement per our
Actually,
offsite.
we don't get explained any our votes. We are done with this
I don't want to
conversation.
explain the vote. I just don't want this vote to happen again until there's a change in makeup of the council or a change of circumstances.
Okay,
Let's
moving
leave it
on
alone.
to mayor's report, if I can get through this. Excuse me. So first of all, so thanks to the Arts Commission who installed a traveling art exhibit on loan from the Wing Luke Museum featuring the art of Jimmy Mercatani, and it's located on both floors at City Hall. Last year, regarding the Parkway, Snoqualmie submitted an application to request the Snoqualmie Parkway be transferred to WashDOT and become an extension of State Route 18. The city has been attending meetings throughout this process, providing additional information to this group. So last week I attended along with Mr. Hamlin, the Washington State Transportation Commission meeting where they discussed the preliminary findings of the Snoqualmie Parkway route jurisdiction transfer request. So Ashley Probart, who's the executive director of Transportation Improvement Board, stated the city of Snoqualmie's request meets the criteria of RCW 47.17.001. One is, it is an urban extension of a rural state highway into or through an urban area and is necessary to form an integrated system of state highways. That's one criteria. The second one it met is urban connecting links as state highways that function as needed by bypass routing of regionally oriented through traffic and benefit truck routing because of it as a capacity alternative or because of business congestion. So it met that. So Mr. Probart also mentioned that the repaving project that Snoqualmie will be doing on the Parkway this year is not related to the jurisdictional transfer. So they point out this was a big selling point that we will complete this work before any transfer to WashDOT. The preliminary vote to approve this was unanimous, and which means the next step is commission approval of the preliminary findings begins the public outreach and engagement process. So that will be going on this summer. And in July, then our elected officials, I think a couple of council members have offered to speak at the next Transportation Commission meeting on July 19th. I will, as well as probably Mr. Hamlin and a couple of council members to provide comments on this transfer. So if anyone else would like to also participate, let me know. So We have SVGA, so Snoqualmie Valley Government Association meeting on Wednesday in North Bend. And one final note, which is, whoops, great news. So Mount Si lacrosse boys team is #1 in the state. And the boys varsity, their full season record is 17 wins, 1 loss. They, for the first time ever in history of this program, they beat Mercer Island, Bellevue, and Eastlake. And they won the 4A King Co division with a record of 10 wins, 0 losses. This week, they have semifinal rounds of the 4A state playoffs on Wednesday. At 8 p.m., they play Eastlake. And if they win, then they go to the 4A championship game at Starfire Sports Complex on Saturday, May 27th at 7 p.m. And they are requesting a police escort out of town. So we will arrange for that. But to also talk about the strength of the program, the boys JV, their full season record, they had 13 wins, 2 losses. The girls varsity season record is 5-6 and 2 ties. The boys 8th grade team season record of 8 wins and 1 tie. And so all these 8th grade boys will be moving into the high school program this next year, where they will have 12 seniors graduating out of this team this year. So congratulations and good luck to the Mount Si lacrosse team. So. Moving on, we commission and committee liaison reports. Do we have any reports from our council liaisons? Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
2 items. First one, I'm going to jump back to committee of the whole. I would like council confirmation that I'm going to put Councilmember Washington in as a representative to the Snoqualmie watershed and myself as alternate, freeing up some time for Councilmember Benson. May I have a second and may I have confirmation?
Second.
This moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilmember Mayhew to appoint.
No, it was seconded by me.
Was it?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, it
very
was. Yeah, it was.
enthusiastically.
Oh.
I
Okay, better.
don't think Jim wants to fight
to
that one.
Appoint Councilmember Washington to the watershed.
So the Snoqualmie
Committee.
watershed forum.
Right. Any
And
discussion?
I will be his alternate.
Okay. Any discussion?
You are already doing a better job than I.
Well, thank you.
Seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, the motion passes and
Second item, as alternate, I attended this Snoqualmie watershed. Just wanted to let you know, the watershed approved grants this year for $2.3 million going out to various projects. A couple of projects of interest to us will be the Meadowbrook Slough continued restoration, which is a Greenway Trust project in partnership with the City of Snoqualmie. So this is benefit to us and we are participating in that. Tollgate Forest Restoration in North Bend, as well as another cool one is Salmon in Schools, where one of our schools participates. They actually get a tank, some juvenile salmon, get the feed care and watch them grow and do educational things around that. And then at the end of the season, actually release those salmons back out into the wild to continue the cycle. It's a very cool project. So that's my report from the watershed.
Councilor Christensen.
I have for the Y and for the school district, we just met with the advisory committee for the Y. Dana McCall, the communications coordinator, attended and provided updated information on the community center expansion, as well as notifying everyone that the webpage has been updated with additional information about the project, as well as frequently asked questions. So if you're getting questions from community members, it's a good place to direct them at this time. In addition, the Y is focusing this month on safety around water. Drowning is leading cause of death for kids 1 to 4. It's very important that we get them safe. In addition, children of color tend to drown at a rate that is 3 times higher than children who are white. So it's an equity issue as well. To the extent that there are any families who need help financially with getting into swim lessons, they can reach out and I can put them into contact with someone who can help. In addition, for the school district, I went to the school board meeting. They voted and approved the MOU for the school resource officer and also discussed their plans for capital improvement projects, which will come back to council. I think they said in August, so we'll be seeing those as well.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson?
I think I alluded to this earlier, but the Northwest Railway Museum was jubilant that Stone Quarry Road is on the list of upcoming road improvements.
It's a rough one.
It's a bumpy road.
Counselor Watton?
Two items. One is the King County Regional Law, Safety and Justice Committee will be meeting this Thursday. You're welcome to join me. It's at 7:30. So let me know if you're interested. I'll send you the link. And it's followed up with the caucus meeting for SCA. The seven of us who serve on the committee meet in the afternoon. That's 2:30 to 3 o'clock. And the second item, and that's Wednesday, June 7th. And this is the Snoqualmie Valley Housing Task Force. And we'll be discussing the buildable land survey, and Director Artecha is going to be is invited as part of that discussion as we work for a opportunity to bring that before the council. And that's going to be from 12 to 1. You can attend it in person at my office in North Bend or by Zoom. And by the way, I do need a city Zoom account. It's been, I believe, approved, but I just need to have that set up. So that's all my report.
If we had an IT director, then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or what about regional committees? In your regional, Councilor Christensen?
For the SCA pick at the last meeting, we discussed the King County Regional Homelessness Authority 5-year plan, which has changed dramatically. If anyone has been following it from what was previously proposed, if you'd like additional information, I can send it your way, but it does look quite different. In addition, we talked about how to fix Blake, but then the legislature stepped in with their one-day session and has addressed that. So I think there will also be some ongoing issues from it, but that's where things have been left.
Thank you. And I attend the Regional Transit Committee. So Metro will be adjusting some of their routes starting in the fall. Some will be not as frequent, some potentially will be canceled or they will be combined. So the information is out there in case you're concerned about a certain route. I did look at 208 and I did not see any changes to 208, which is good. And I don't see Councilor Mayhew anymore online. He sits on 3 different regional councils, but so I have to catch him next time. Any other comments? Okay. So we also have, tonight we have 2 executive sessions. So executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1404B for the planning or adoption of a strategy or position to be taken during the course of any collective bargaining proceedings or reviewing the proposals made in the negotiations or proceeding should be lasting approximately, how long do you think we need for that? Is it a quick update, 10 minutes? Okay, for 10 minutes. An executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101 to discuss litigation that has been specifically threatened to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in an official capacity is or likely to become a party, or litigation or legal risks of proposed action or current practice that has agency identified when public discussion of litigation or legal risks is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency lasting approximately 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And we'll ask interim city attorney David Linehan, Director Jen Ferguson, budget manager Drew Boutte, and our interim city administrator, Mike Chambliss, to participate. And so we will we'll log off. I don't think we need, do we need the Zoom link for anything?
Councilor Mayhew join?
I don't know. I don't.
We need it for Drew.
Oh, yes, we do need for Drew. So we will hop off here and we will hop onto the other link for the, there he is, for the executive session. There will be possible action maybe taken at the end of the executive session. So, okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break. And so we will come back for, yes, we will plan to be done by 10:50 at the latest.
I bet we can shave that
9:50.
down to 45 minutes.
Sorry, 9:50. Okay. Thank you. All right, it's now 10:17 and we have returned from our executive session. And Councilmember Johnson,
Move to reject the offer made in mediation from the city of Duval and direct staff to follow guidance provided by the mayor.
Seconded.
so it was moved by Councilmember Johnson and second by Councilor Benson. Is there any discussion, council?
It's worded exactly.
Seeing none? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? The approval of the motion is unanimous. And council, is there any further business coming for us? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
So it's
Second.
moved by Councilor Washington, second by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? It is unanimous. Good evening, everyone. We adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Feel like we agreed on one wording.